dragging on the promises and songs of yesterday. And I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. Here I go again. Here I go again. Though I keep searching for an answer, I never seem to find what I'm looking for. Lord, I pray you give me strength to carry on, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. Here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. And I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. I'm just another heart in need of rescue, waiting on love's sweet charity. And I'm gonna hold on for the rest of my days, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. And I made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. But here I go again. Here I go again. Here I go again. Here I go. Cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've never known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. And I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. 'Cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness, walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
If it's over, so fuck it. Just don't act like my love wasn't nothing. Like I wasn't the one you was holding that night, telling all of your secrets and hugging. Guess you right, it's too good to be true. Was a point, all I needed was you. But shit, time after time, I just fussing and fighting. It's time that you do what you do. And it's cool. Mama said it was fish in the sea, I got lost in the pool. Knew it was coming, I watched how you move. How you turn your back on me and leave me to lose. Remember the text, how you said that you do. Said that you never leave, we would fight till it's due. But as it went on, I was fighting for you. Since the text turned green, why the fuck it ain't blue? Guess you done and I get it. Said you stay and you wanted my name and you left, so I'm guessing that you never meant it. Said you try and hold on cause the love was so strong, now I'm standing alone in this kitchen. Singing sad songs, but I'm knowing that this shit don't last long. If you leaving, then leave cause your bag's gone. But just know you can never come back home.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness. Walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
If you say that you done it, no take back. Said you fell out of love and I hate that. But see me, I was stuck like a drug, really feeling for love and somehow I can't shake back. When you walked out that door, I was hurting. All the dreams in my head, you was perfect. You remember the very first time that we killed and I reached for your hand where the nerves at. Time to pass, but shit, that's what it do. It be times I be sick sitting thinking about you. It was death do us part. You gave me the blue, really played with my heart. Left me lost in the field, like this shit was fair game. But you made it the rules. On my heart, left a scar and a bruise. Hope that you can stand on all the shit that you did. Cause I'm done, y'all finally through.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness. Walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just stuck? I went to a shrink to analyze my dreams. She says it's like a sex that's bringing me down. I went to a whore. He said my life's a bore. Choke with my white cause it's bringing her down. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Grasping to control, so I better hold on. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Like a son?
Really proud of is I've educated my security team on how to be involved with the design and construction
Love it.
aspects of a project. So very rarely are we bringing in a third party who is going to say, yeah, you need a camera there, you need a camera here, right? I pride myself that my teams are doing that internally.
Everyone has a part in the security and safety of all of our guests and employees. And it doesn't stop just if security is in your title.
I assure you, as the day is long, within the next 5 years, we're going to have a drone attack in a school with a payload.
Let's say you're new in your position, safety security director or whatever, chief of police maybe, whatever your position is, but you have no funding. You've got no bodies, no SROs. What are you doing day one, phase one, to make sure that you do create some kind of, push towards a secure and more safe environment for the kids?
I am laser focused on making sure that kid or kiddos feel connected to that campus.
If you got something to say, step on up to the plate. Name a time, name a place. You sign the line, got debt to pay.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Taylor May, the founder of Security VIP, SVIP for short. Welcome to another episode and interview of SVIP Live. As a recap, guys and girls, this is our weekly interview series that only exclusively features end users in the security industry, and I'm excited to announce our next guest on today's session. Before I announce this awesome gentleman, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Resident Security. There is a QR code listed on the screen. You can check out exactly what Resident Security does, cybersecurity for all. And it's a great sponsor because I am featuring a cybersecurity expert. That's right. His name is Christopher Carr. He's the information security advisor at Fort Bend ISD in Houston. And Chris, my friend, welcome to SVIP Live. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. I was watching the video. I was really entertained with the video that led in, and I was almost going to answer the questions. I was like, oh, hey, there's some questions there. We've got similarities. We do. I'm on the information security side, not on the physical security side, but I interface very closely with our police department because a lot of those lines get blurry with what we do.
Well, this is why I want to have you on, Chris, because you are actually my first cybersecurity expert and user on SVIP Live. I've always had physical security guys, and not to discredit my physical security friends, but right. We need to start featuring cybersecurity because you're right, there is an intersection between physical and cyber, and honestly, man, cybersecurity attacks happen more frequently than physical security incidents. So right. I do want to talk about that. I do want to encourage our audience tuning in. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. If you have questions for Chris, please drop them in the chat. I will ask Chris those questions as long as they're applicable to his background and experience. But feel free to drop your questions and I'll pin them here on the live. But Chris, to kick this off, man, why don't you give our listeners some context about your background and your experience real quick?
Yeah, Chris Carr. I'm the information security advisor for Fort Bend ISD schools. We are the 7th or 8th largest school district in Texas, depending on the day and the student enrollment. We have our good friends, Katy ISD, where we're kind of neck and neck with in student enrollment. I got into information security 30 years ago, roundabout way in terms of one of my first jobs was helping to reset Windows DOS computers at the time, 286 computers that Michigan State University loaned out to the kiddos. And so every dorm room had one of these computers. And as you can imagine, college students and all the nonsense that got put on them. So one of my first jobs was rebuilding, fixing, and reinstalling those. And that job just kind of parlayed into a job with the university, the computer store that they had, where in addition to selling computers, one of our chief jobs was recovering dissertations that were lost on those 3.5-inch floppy disks that all the kiddos that have tuned in today know the symbol, the save symbol. Yeah, those are actually real physical things.
What's a floppy disk, Chris? I don't know if people know what that is now.
Exactly right. So it's I like when my daughter, she'll say, "Oh, you mean that's the save symbol?" And I go, "Yeah, those used to be real things. People used to carry those around, and unfortunately, they would carry them in their back pocket. They would sit on them, and they'd bring them into us and." Oh my goodness, my PhD thesis or something is can you help me get it off or something like that. So, and all the way through from Michigan State to the state of Michigan, where I was part of the Secure Michigan Initiative, and we were very early on there in 2000. 2002 was when I got my CISSP, and we were doing a lot of securing the state. We had just kind of collapsed all IT functions. And so that was my doing InfoSec all the way through there, work for private companies and whatnot. But that was kind of my first foray into more real-time information security. And because my background at that time allowed me to kind of get into cybersecurity and information security at the time, that was still kind of fledgling, even back then, the certificates and or certifications and things were still kind of new. And so from there, I've also worked for the U.S. House of Representatives, and then moved here to Houston, and have worked for Memorial Hermann, worked for HISD briefly, but have spent the majority of my time, the past almost 10 years, at Fort Bend ISD. My boss, Long Fan, the CIO, he was really interested in helping us, as we say, our elevator pitches, helping kids stay safe online, and also helping the internet stay safe from our kiddos who are curious learners, as we like to call them. They like to download tax scripts and do all kinds of fun things, as most kids like to do. So I've got more insider threats than most organizations in the Houston area, and they are very much like inmates in a prison. They are eager to break out of all of my content filters and all the other pieces. So it's a continuous challenge to stay current with what the latest exploits are and what the latest things that our kiddos might be up to try to get to the stuff that we don't necessarily want them to get to.
Well, this is something, Chris, that you and I spoke about on the podcast a while back, about the cool thing to do nowadays, and for kiddos, is to be a black hat, to be
Right.
hacking things, to exposing things, and exposing things. But one of the things, man, that you told me in that episode, which I still resonate with today, is changing that mindset, making them more of a cyber patriot. And I love when you said that, because it's true. We need to have this conversation with the younger generation, because to your point, man, deepfake technology is hot right now as far as a challenge. I actually found a solution, Chris, for deepfakes, which is actually really, really freaking cool. But I want to pivot back to the younger generation, especially in a school environment when you've got limited resources. Number one, I mean, it's not like schools are wealthy unless you live in a wealthy private area, but let's just be honest here, schools don't have a lot of funding. So how are you incorporating a safe learning experience as well as the digital footprint aspect for those kiddos who maybe have interest in hacking the school? How do you do that?
No, definitely. We partner with our teaching and learning department, who's really responsible for the kind of curriculum delivery in the classroom. And so we do a lot of digital citizenship, and we do everything from staying safe online, setting secure passwords, things of that nature, kind of the table stakes, all the way to ethics and responsible cyber behavior online, cyberbullying, a lot of the things that unfortunately happen in this day and age, where bad actors will attempt to lure and trick our students. Grooming is a very big problem that we have with that age range. And so that's a lot of what we're kind of battling, is not only teaching them the right way to use things online and the right way to be responsible, but also trying to remind them that when we restrict certain things, it's not because we're mean old meanies who don't want them to go and have fun on the internet, but it's because, in our expert opinion, we've generally found places that are less safe than others, and we certainly want them to have those creative outlets. And then, unfortunately, if we miss that messaging altogether, and we, through our investigations, find our kiddos are up to no good, we generally try to do that intervention, as you mentioned, try to get them to use their powers for good and not evil. So we try to steer them towards capture the flag type of cyber activities, such as Cyber Patriot, which is run out of the U.S. Air Force, and a lot of folks, a lot of students, and a lot of schools participate. And I certainly, in my role, I work as an advisor for our teams that compete. And it's a great way for them to learn all the technology, learn the rules of the road, but most importantly, understand that there's a right and a wrong way. There's rules of engagement. As we're fond of saying in cyber, the difference between a hacker and a pen tester is the pen tester will write you a report. They get permission and they'll write you a report. The hacker is going to do the exact same things, but they're not going to write you a report. They're not going to go ahead and let you know what they did. So a lot of times this goes beyond the classroom, and we just teach the students, hey, here's the right way to do stuff. Here's a concept like responsible disclosure. Maybe you're just doing your normal business as a student, but you discover something that you think is important or is problematic. we encourage you to share that information with us, because yes, there could be a configuration issue, or there could be some sort of hole in the security that we have in that regard. So yeah, definitely our goal is to educate the students, teach them how to be safe online, and then give them creative outlets if they do want to do it. I'll leave you on this for that topic is I often go as well to our middle schools. We do career day. And the two jobs that all of the students, all the eighth graders want, is they want to be CISO or they want to be a pen tester. Those are
Of course.
the only two jobs. They want to either be the boss or they want to be the guy that breaks everything. And so a lot of times I get to educate them on there's a lot of jobs out there that are not those two jobs that you could also do in our field. And if you have an affinity for it, if you have interest, much like fledgling esports and other types of online groups, hey, there's other communities that will teach you the responsible way to get into cyber. And like I said, I can't stress Cyber Patriot enough that it's a great platform for students of all school districts if they're interested in getting involved in cyber.
Well, on the vendor side, Chris, I mean, I would say this, man, the cybersecurity industry is just saturated with vendors. I'm sure you've got hit up a ton by vendors. But to your point, personally, I love learning from people that used to take advantage of others. I rather learn from a nefarious actor or a bad actor or a black hat, just because, like,
Right.
they know what the weak spots are. And the same on the physical side, someone that used to, rip off people for a living, whether it's casinos or shoplifters, whatever it may be, and maybe they've made the shift towards good. But I like to learn from people like that versus a sales pitch. And so
Right.
I try to find vendors that have that kind of same mentality, or maybe have some black hat characteristics part of their offering. And not to keep pointing to our sponsors, but Residence Team, they have former black hats working for them now, so
Right.
which is a cool thing to could experience. But I want to paint the picture for our audience, and maybe because this is new to me, how often do you see cybersecurity incidents happen internally as well as externally hitting that school? Like, is there like a monthly number you have in mind of how many times you guys do get threats?
It fluctuates, but I can tell you the types of attacks that we see, because we've been working at this, and we could do a whole another hour on the lack of funding, the lack of resources that kind of habitually plague K-12s. So we try to use as many low cost, no cost services. We've been using a lot from the federal government through the MSI-SAC, through its multi-state information sharing group. We use things. UT Austin has a security scanner that they use, scanning the dark web for accounts and information. And so we get a lot of intelligence, even with our partnerships through InfraGard, through Palo Alto subscriptions. And so we do a lot of threat intelligence, a lot of IOCs, a lot of things that we see there. But in terms then of the successful attacks, or the ones that we see, phishing, of course, and whaling is really big for school districts, going after our principals. A lot of the PII, a lot of the stuff in cyber, when you're going to attack an organization, a lot of it starts with that fingerprinting or that OSINT or open source intelligence. You don't have to do a lot of work to go after a school district, because almost all of our stuff is posted online. So a lot of times it's, the organization, that the players, principal names, teacher names. And so whether you're going to work east-west or north-south in terms of going after certain users and profiles. And so a lot of times what we learn, is we pay for annual pen testing. We basically pay vendors to come in and do an engagement. We usually focus on our external facing properties. And then we have 1 week where they're inside our network, where we're essentially simulating, okay, maybe the bad guy got a foothold in our organization. What can you get to? And then we go on top of that and say, let's say you got the keys to the kingdom. What kind of passwords, what kind of weak credentials do we have? What are other things that they can be used for exploits? And so the types, back to your question, that we see a lot of fin fraud. We see a lot of them going after trying to do fraudulent transactions, both through our procurement vehicles, through our accounts payable. They're a big target. Staff accounts are a big target. So if they can try to get in and change direct deposit information. And so when we layer that security free things where we require multi-factor authentication, we require some additional steps. Not everything, of course, we'll talk about here, but we put a lot of layers in place so that it becomes very hard for a would-be criminal to be successful. We used to see a lot of those attacks on the holidays. Again, another piece of our great data that we put out there is a school calendar. so they know when we're gone. And we always would see them attacking us before spring break, before basically our holidays, because again, the assumption is, okay, this poor school district, everybody's going to be gone and the doors, are going to be shut, the lights are going to be out. So we're going to have a while to attack their systems and to go after things. And so that's where even 2 years ago, we partnered with CrowdStrike, and we use their service, which provides us 24/7 visibility on some of our key assets, so we can get alerts. So again, there's layers here in terms of that, but they go after credentials, they go after our financial systems, they go after our PII, our student information system. So there's kind of some common tactics and things that we see. Knock on wood, they have not been successful, or where they are, we've been able to stop them. So maybe they compromise accounts, but those layers of security we talk about, we don't lose money then as a result, because we have additional checks and balances that kind of kick in before things can get to a bad state.
Well, I think it's important what you said. It's good to have layers on both the offensive and defensive side of cybersecurity, right? It's great to go do pen testing, look for vulnerabilities, but also set up like EDR from CrowdStrike, et cetera,
Right.
to have that wall. Speaking of whaling and maybe going after some big fish, I mentioned deepfakes technology earlier. A couple of years ago, everyone's seen videos of like impersonating Elon Musk or, Donald Trump or whatever, impersonating people, but using their image, their voice, their audio, the video,
Right.
to take advantage of others. And are you seeing that at all in school districts, where if I want to pretend I'm Christopher Carr and I want to take advantage of XYZ student for XYZ reason? I mean, are you seeing any kind of that issue right now?
Yeah, we haven't seen that yet, but I anticipate that's coming. The last concerted campaign we had was right before spring break this year, and they were overseas actors, but they were using local phone numbers, and they had obtained a certain amount of PII for some of our principals, and they were going after the principals' accounts, and they were trying to convince our call center to change the credentials, to basically flush out or change the MFA methods used, because they could, in some cases, through weak passwords or password reuse, which we discourage, but it still occurs, they were able to gain some footholds in some of these accounts. And again, sometimes just scraping the dark web, finding names, matching them up, and trying those passwords, right? And so if your users are using their login is their UPN, is their email address, that becomes a kind of a common target for password reuse, where, hey, I'm going to sign up for this service. Hey, it's my district email, and I'll just use the same password because that's my district email. Why not? Well, you can't always tell whether or not that site is reputable or even has good enough security. And if it's a newsletter or some other click to use, paywall type of situation, or, newsletter or something, we find a lot of times that those credentials, get compromised in that regard. And so we're not surprised. That's why we've implemented MFA. And we're not surprised that some of those single factor credentials are compromised. But the bad guys, the sophistication this time around was they had a lot of information. And what we figured, because they were trying to convince our call center that they were that individual, even though the voices didn't match. And the funny part is we have about 80 principals, and they call in frequently enough that a lot of our help desk know the voices. And so it wasn't even so much that they had gone through, the effort of doing a deep fake. They just were calling in and thinking we wouldn't know their voices. But the good news was, because of our layers of security, our call center, they caught it, and they said, hey, but then they alerted me and they said, this is different from the run of the mill. They have a lot of very specific information. It's not information that we make available. So we assume that they are cross-referencing information from other data dumps, maybe the Experian hack or some of the other, hacks. And they came armed with a lot more information. Fortunately, we don't use that kind of information to validate the user. And fortunately, we have other mechanisms, again, that we don't talk about, but that we can say, this is how we're going to do it. So it really, was good that our protocols were in place the way they were, but it made us revisit and say, okay, because some of those methods, not all of them, are things that we traditionally used, we said, okay, we're going to move away now from those kind of commonly known or easily knowable pieces of information to verify your identity, right? Because whether you're using a deep fake or not, how do you know at the end of a phone call or the end of a video call that you are actually speaking to the person you are? Well, that usually comes back to challenge information, right? That generally comes back to those shibboleth or other types of passphrases, things that we've been advocating to all of our executives for years about hey, financial transactions should require multiple levels of authorization, especially the big ones. And you definitely got to get these people off of, it can't be all done via one method like email or Teams or something like that. You gotta go ahead and say, all right, I need to verify that I am actually communicating with who I am, because maybe their email was compromised and they got that far. Well, now if you have that secondary measure in plus maybe a passphrase, you can really validate before you go ahead and push the button. So those are the layers that we kind of look to. And so I am certain we're going to start to see the cloning. I am absolutely certain we're going to start to see the cloning. But again, we're confident in that some of our layers of defense, that it won't be voice recognition alone or fist of the sender, as we used to talk about way back in the good old days with telegraph machines. It won't require us to kind of say, does it sound like or look like the person? We're still going to rely upon other preset bits of information, or we're simply going to refuse those actions until we can get high confidence that we are dealing with the right person.
Well, the reason why I bring that challenge up is because this MGM had a big hack about a year ago now, where it was a voice line. Someone impersonated to be over a voice line, and they gained confidential information. And what did MGM do? They ended up paying over 100. I think it's like over 100 million, Chris. They had to pay out to the hacker, and Caesars got hacked too, and they had to pay out too. So I say that because I know you know this, but like as a father now of a 2-year-old daughter and obviously a newborn son, when they get to school, the last thing that I want to worry about as a parent is someone trying to impersonate me or my wife or someone else to get to my kid to release confidential information. So there is a company out there. I don't get paid by them, but I won't mention the company. It's called Swear. Chris, I would love to have you check out a demo of them sometime. But they have a solution for kind of content manipulation and authenticity. So it's really, really cool stuff. They use blockchain technology, pixel by pixel, really, really cutting edge stuff. I first saw it and I was like, damn, you have a solution for these fucking pedophiles that are impersonating, kids on the dark web, which is what we need,
Oh, absolutely. And that is still going to be a part of the challenge, because, a big thing that we have, in addition to the bad guys out there, is we have, our student pranksters and others, right? And when you and I went to school, it was notes being passed around, and it was kids pulling the fire alarm and all kinds of other of those kind of hijinks. Well, online, you get a lot of the similar kind of hoax type of stuff. Hopefully not swatting and other types of things, but we have had those incidents where students have posted seemingly confusing messages on social media regarding school closures, inclement weather days, things of that nature. So we've had to up our game in terms of using verified accounts, doing some of the other pieces that we need to do. Because you're absolutely right. It's not just perhaps fin fraud or other things that they might be attacking us, but it becomes very important that our community, that our parents, that everybody knows and trusts the information they see. And the more and more stuff that goes online, it's very easy for folks to, without even our knowledge. And we see it happen a lot, where our parents will be communicated with, or will be communicating with folks that are not us. And so one of the big initiatives that we're still underway on, but we've made a lot of progress, is we're moving away from our .com address space, because we had a lot of fraud, and we even had some attempted financial fraud with folks spinning up Fort Bend ISD variations on .com. Well, .com has no restrictions. So we moved to .gov. So we're FortBendISD.gov now. We're moving the rest of our properties over. Emails have already been converted over. So these are the kind of things that we're doing to kind of ensure for our public, for parents, for students, everybody, that we're doing as many things as we can to validate and to make sure that you can trust the identities that you're communicating with, and reminding them of, these are the official platforms, these are the official accounts. Everything else you're not going to be communicated with from a Gmail account from, say, your principal or your teacher, right? That they're going to come from our official accounts. So if you get something like that, let us know, and definitely don't take any action until you are sure you're talking to us.
Well, DNS takeovers, domain takeovers happen commonly. I know there's hackers out there that like to hack. Like, I think McDonald's got hacked a while ago, and they just completely obliterated their account and said inappropriate stuff, which is, to some people it's funny, but the businesses, it's like, dude, how the hell do we get it exposed like that? But I like that, man, because that you see DNS takeovers happen commonly. I'm glad you guys converted to .gov. You think that's a recommendation for all school districts to move to .gov?
It is. It's an interesting thing, especially for K-12s. Here's a history deep cut. More than 20 years ago, .edu got restricted, And so we've always had folks say, well, why are you not at EDU? Well, EDUs got restricted to higher ed only, and K-12s couldn't get them. And so even in Texas, you'll find that some school districts, some K-12 school districts are .edus. Well, they're grandfathered in. If you got those domains, 20 plus years ago, you could get there. And so when I joined the organization about 10 years ago, we had Fort Bend state.tx.us. I have to remember it. It's a mouthful. No one's going to type that. No one's going to type Chris Carr
Right.
at, a Fort Bend, state TX US. And so the .com was already existing when I came on board, and we started looking into it, researching it, and there were no good answers at the time. That there was a few years where .gov was not an option for us, and we couldn't get a .edu, and so we couldn't get into one of the more restricted top level domains. And so then the real question is, what can we do? There wasn't much we could do. The minute that the federal government agreed, and again, through our partnerships, and thank goodness for the MSISAC and other lobbying entities, and here's the shameless plug, call your Congress people and tell them, we appreciate everything we're doing to save money at the federal level, but please stop taking money away from CISA and MSISAC, because they provide much needed critical services to the underfunded K-12 environments across the U.S. and voting and everybody else. But I'll be honest, we're worried about the K-12s right now. And so that was a great thing. They had lobbied for it, and the government said sure, and we jumped right on it. It took us a bit of time to get it all set up,
Right.
and then it's also taking time to convert over, because stationery, letterhead, publications, lots of stuff has it. And so we've been moving methodically to make sure that the .com still work, but everything outbound is now .gov and is moving websites and other things over. And so again, that was critical, because you've got to be a trusted entity to register .gov. So we don't have that worry about lookalikes anymore. We can use DNSSEC to go ahead and secure the domain. So we can kind of further reduce some of those common exploits and kind of common tactics. But again, we saw Fort Bend ISD, lookalike.com domains that were generated. And sometimes our vendors would contact us and say, hey, is this you? And would say, no, it's not us, that we're still just FortBendISD.com, not whatever letters or numbers or little things. And so, like I said, for the past year plus 2 years, especially on email, we've been in much better shape in terms of being a trusted communication platform, to be able to use email in a more trusted way, because we can assure our partners, our vendors, our parents, these are official and legitimate messages coming from the district.
No, it's good, man. I haven't heard that before, so I actually like that piece of counsel there. I want to remind
other
our
K-12s, go do it. I mean, if you're a
100%.
K-12 person listening, go set it up. If you haven't already started working on it, you can hit me up, find me on LinkedIn. Most of you guys in the area know me, so just hit me up and I'll give you the rundown on how to get that going.
Definitely connect with Chris on LinkedIn, guys and girls. And speaking to our audience, if you have a question for Chris, we got about 30 minutes left on this live session. So please drop a question for Chris. If you have one, I will highlight it and ask Chris here live. But Chris, going back to your comment about maybe lobbying and legislation and, woe is me, I always need funding and yada, yada, yada. But you know what, Chris, until blood is on the ground or a situation happens, people don't take safety and security seriously, even on the cybersecurity side, man. So
Right.
what is it really going to take, dude? Is it going to take more blood on the ground or more hacks to happen for lobbyists and legislation to actually wake the fuck up and fund this stuff? Or what do you think is going to happen, man? I know I'm being blunt, but I'm sick and tired of seeing it, man. Because I speak with individuals just like yourself on the physical side, and they say, Taylor, sometimes we get lucky with bonds and grant money. Sometimes we rob Peter to pay Paul. Sometimes we make it work, but sometimes we don't have anything, Right. And so, how are we going to make this more of a mandate here in Texas? Not alone. I know you're based in Texas, like I am, but other states and nationwide where funding's limited.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak as well on the federal level. I mean, there are grants, there are other options that are not guarantee. I mean, it's kind of sad if your cyber program has to rely upon the generosity of others. Every time I go speak, I have a couple slides about philanthropy that I'm looking from our vendors. I can be often heard saying a few less steak dinners for oil and gas to all my friends in Houston, and maybe you can afford to give some of your licenses to help us keep the kids safe. And so It is a tough challenge. And so I can't really speak to the federal, but I can tell you on the state level, everybody knows that teachers and school districts are underfunded. I mean, that doesn't seem to be anything that anybody needs to be convinced of. The arguments are always going to be, where does that money go? How does that help, with the education process? And so we're always scrapping, even with whatever allocation we get from the state, we're always kind of scrapping internally to get above the line, as it were, to say we need a little bit more funding, a little bit more funding. And yes, unfortunately, the dark gallows humor, right, is I need funding, and they say no, and then immediately after a breach, they say, here's the wallet, reach in and take out what you think is fair to make this never happen again. And you would think with all the near misses, as we talk about them, we have a laundry list. I won't shame anybody, but there's school districts even not too far away who've experienced cyber attacks. And what we always try to do, especially through our partnerships like through InfraGard, we would always invite those folks to come talk to our folks and say, here are the lessons learned. What did you do? How did you overcome it? And so it's really not a matter of education. It's really not a matter of folks not understanding, but it is sadly sometimes overcoming that inertia, that concept. When people in cyber talk about assume breach, or it's not if, but it's when, then there can almost be a malaise that sets in, which is, well, how much money is it going to cost us to make something bad never happen? And will you give me a guarantee that nothing bad will happen if we spend N number of dollars more than we are? And so I don't want to make it sound like, my organization or any specific organization has specific issues. I think the general issue we all struggle with is, you're buying insurance, you're basically mitigating risk, you're buying down, or you're trying to offset some of the risk with perhaps investments in technology or people. And so every organization has to find that right line. And so to your point, how do you get it done, or maybe mandate it? I think what we're interesting seeing in Texas right now is kind of this alignment or realignment, the idea from the legislature of, hey, we're going to give you some more money, but we're going to target it to specific causes, such as teacher pay. Now, if the legislature were to say, hey, a certain percentage of your pupil funding should go towards keeping you safe and secure, that might help. That might be something to be done. But you also hate to see where the unintended consequences of anything that gets legislated, right? You hate to see how those things can kind of play out and negatively. It sounds great on paper to say, hey, this is what you should allocate, or you should have a formula that's required, but that doesn't always work in practice, and sometimes can hurt you, or sometimes result in the wrong kind of things happening. So I will always advocate for more to help our kids secure, especially in light of maybe losing some services that we've been relying upon for free that have been largely leveraged from others. But we're also somewhat optimistic. We're optimistic that maybe we can convince some of our more deep-pocketed vendors to maybe help step in and fill the void. Maybe we can get some of them to help subsidize some of these state and federal programs that maybe are losing some state or federal funding. Maybe they can help step in, maybe not a single hero, but maybe we can get a few of our bigger vendors to pitch in and say, hey, here's the money that was going to be withdrawn. Maybe you guys can kick in and keep that critical service going. And as I always say to them, hey, I'm happy to, I don't want to have the kids make cookies with their little fingers to support cyber initiatives, but we are certainly happy to say nice things about any vendor, who's willing to do what it takes to help keep our kids safe. My boss and I love to say about the unripe PII that all of our kiddos, if you're in 5th grade, you have all the information the bad guys want to steal. The last thing we want to do is have you go to college, try to get your first credit card, and get turned down because you own a Cabo, villa that you haven't made payments on in 3 years. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that scares us, is how much of this PII could be used without, what 14-year-old is checking their credit score, right? So at the end of the day, we know we're targets. Everybody, I think, knows we're targets. Everybody knows we're underfunded. I don't know if there's a perfect answer for how to ensure that we get more funding. But I think the best thing that we're all doing is being part of consortiums, helping each other out, and maybe, a little arm twisting of some of our more deep-pocketed vendors to say, help us keep kids safe till they're 18. When they're 18, they can make their own bad, decisions in life, but let's help keep them safe until 18. The bad guys are going after them. Let's let all the good guys, put a shield around them and say, hands off the kids, and at least till they're 18.
Well, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I mean, obviously, I played college football. I love when schools put like awesome football stadiums in at schools, and they're impressive, 60,
Right.
70, $80 million stadiums in there, Chris. They're really cool here in Texas. We
Yeah.
know high school football is a big thing, but to your point, some of that funding could be used in other allocates of the school. Even a partial of that. And one of the things, Chris, that I've debated myself personally with SVIP is taking a portion of my revenue stream and donating security solutions to school districts or under-resourced environments. So just a shout out to those listening. If you subscribe to SVIP, I'm starting to donate
Nice.
solutions to schools. Because to your point, Chris, I mean, schools are under-resourced. I get that, especially Oklahoma, man. Oklahoma had like the school districts in Oklahoma. They're very, very severely under-resourced there. But you're right, man. I would love to see vendors maybe just donate or give to these under-resourced environments. It doesn't have to be under-resourced, but maybe just show an initiative to say, look, we've got all this income, all this
Right.
revenue. Why can't we
Right.
take a sliver of that and share the pie,
Right.
with people when it comes to safety and security? Because if we're here to make this world a better place, both on the physical and cyber side, that should
Right.
be a no-brainer. But I'm speaking to the choir here. I can play my
Oh,
little
hey,
violin.
you preach on. I need more people in my choir because I guess I'm with you. And I mean, one thing to just clarify a little bit would be sometimes it's easy for the public to see things like a stadium go up or some other thing go up and say, why was that money not used for, say, teacher pay or other things?
Right.
We could go into a whole nother session regarding how money gets programmed or how money is allocated. And a lot of times the capital investments we make are bonds. So we ask the voters and we say, these are things we want you to vote on. And sometimes they vote them down. Sometimes we say, we want to build some new schools. We want to upgrade some schools. And sometimes those get approved. IT is hard though. It's one of those things where sometimes the public does not want to do a 20-year, 30-year bond to fund something that may only last 5 or 7 years. And so it's really hard for us in the technology space sometimes to convince people of the need that we need to have money. And it's really hard to say, again, I mean, if you can imagine as an individual, you do a 30-year mortgage on your house, right? But you wouldn't probably do a 30-year mortgage on a car, and you certainly wouldn't do one on a laptop. And so those are those kind of challenges we run into sometimes with funding and funding streams is it coming out of general funds or is it coming out of one of those bond or capital expenses? And when you do those things, what are the rules? What can you spend the money on? What can't you spend the money on? So it is sometimes very easy, but I have to sometimes explain to folks, no, it's not as simple as saying, hey, the district had a big bag of money and they just wouldn't give any to cyber. Sometimes it's the money we have is so tightly controlled or so tightly regulated that it can't just be used for something else. But I'll tell you, this last bond we did put in for technology. And one of the exciting things that we're doing is we're upgrading some of our content filters,
Nice.
something we haven't been able to do in the past 10 years. So we're fingers crossed that if things get fully approved, one of the things that we're going to try to use some of that bond money for is some new content filters. So we'll definitely be updating through the websites and everything else if that happens. But that's one of the exciting things that we might actually be able to use some funds for to make that happen.
Well, I know everything like deserves or needs a business case for approval. I know it's all about having a seat at the table, and I know sometimes you have to validate, the reasons why you want to spend X amount of money for X amount product. I get that. It's just
Right.
I wish there was more emphasis of attention on cyber as well as physical, man, because this convergence now we talk about in the industry is happening where you've got
Right.
cameras and VMS systems and access
Oh, yeah.
control systems that are being exploited, and they have been exploited for years until finally people are taking it more seriously. And Chris, to your other point, man, I've seen manufacturers now in the security industry, at least on the physical side, be more take more of a priority towards their cybersecurity components of their physical security offering. So now there's actually a cybersecurity component
Right.
embedded in that physical security component. And I'm not saying it wasn't there before, but now there's more of attention on that because, again, when you connect to a network, whether it's air gapped, even air gap scenarios, they can still be hacked. So
Right.
it's just, it happens all the time. But I want to point this comment. I've had this comment up. This is from Rick Francis. Chris, he's the chief at Seminole County Schools in Florida, by the way. So another end user, but he says, great point regarding the timing of these threats right before or during school closures, which I'm
Right.
sure that ticks up, holiday seasons, schools, especially now. So let's talk about summer. Are you seeing any threats happening right now in summer?
Oh, definitely. I mean, one of the things that we would see annually, like I said, is we always get the kind of the fin fraud stuff at a lot of the breaks. one of the things we see a lot is targeting of our teachers right before the end of school, because a lot of teachers are on contracts where they don't work full time. And so a lot of teachers pick up, I couldn't give you a percentage, but a lot of them do pick up summer jobs or other jobs, whether
Right.
they're teaching summer school. And a lot of times, one of the big targets that we see every year, and we have to send reminders, is some of these are too good to be true. They're just like the marketplace exploits, where it's yeah, sure, I live in Germany, but I want to buy your garage door that you're selling online.
Dude,
I'm going to send
Craigslist
you a
is the
check for
worst, man.
1,000. Yeah, I'm going to send you a check for 1,000. I know that you only were asking $50. Please send me $950 back. Well, we get
That's right.
similar types of scams targeting our teachers with regards to either trying to get money or things directly out of them, but a lot of them are tied to jobs or employment for, hey, my kiddo really likes you, because I have looked you up online and I know that you're this type of a teacher, a math teacher or something. My kiddo really likes you in their math class. Are you, available to tutor them this summer? I'll pay you X number of dollars, blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes they get into the confidence game where they start to lure them along. And then we watch as those kind of standard, scam tactics occur, which is, oh, I overpaid you, I want to pay you in advance. Ooh, I overpaid you. Can you send me back the overpayment type of information? And so it's sad, it's always the gift cards. It's always those kind of scams, but specifically they target our teachers, which is infuriating, that they target our teachers knowing full well that they probably do need the work. And that they're kind of playing on that confidence, on that maybe not asking enough questions up front when they get targeted. So
one of the others too that I've seen, Chris, is like job postings, man, where they all have like fake job postings on LinkedIn, and people submit their information. It's really not a legit posting. They just get their information, then they try to exploit it. I've seen that happen a couple times, as well as like unsubscribe links and emails. I've seen attacks happen that way too. Like in an email, you want to unsubscribe from a spam, but sometimes you click on unsubscribe button, it exploits you. So they're happening, man, everywhere.
Yeah, no, and it's QR codes. It's the quishing that in real space or even online. Folks will think nothing of pulling their phone out. Most people are like, oh, I got a QR code in my work email. Let me pull out my personal phone to see where this QR code goes. Well, that is the tactic. The tactic is to get you away from our defenses and to get you onto your personal device. And so sometimes it's just establishing confidence. Sometimes it's credential stealing, any number of methods that the bad guys will use. And sadly, they do it in the real space too. Folks will get scammed at gas pumps or any other places where QR codes are being used. So again, you hate to have your staff and your users be paranoid, but we try to encourage them to stay within our defensive posture as much as possible, because sometimes if they can get them off, if they can get them to immediately pivot to private email or other types of stuff, we have no visibility. We have no real ways to protect them once they've taken that scam communication offline, so to speak, or out of band with what we can do.
I think it's important too, and you know this better than anyone else, Chris. I mean, there's no guarantee anything you do in security, right? I mean, there's always going to be vulnerabilities. There's always going to be risk exposed, even on the physical side. You can't stop everything. There's still going to be things, but I think to my audience, what I always preach to my end user community as well as manufacturers is, look, end users are doing everything in their power to make a better place for kids, staff, employees, guests, etc. with what they have. Sometimes end users have capital, sometimes end users have bodies, sometimes end users have nothing, and they have to fight for themselves. And so I think that's the perception that I like to preach. Is just, look, we're doing everything in our possible, but you can't guarantee an attack. You can't guarantee prevention or an exposure, because shit happens.
Oh yeah.
There's a question here from Marty, Chris, that I want to ask you. Marty actually is another end user. So again, I love when end users ask other end users questions. Marty works at Oklahoma Gas and Energy, OG&E, up in Oklahoma. So good friend of mine. But he says, what's one lesson learned the hard way that you think others should know about? It's a good question.
So without attribution, one of the things that I found really insightful that we learned a few years back from one of our peer networks, peer ISDs, was they had suffered a ransomware attack. And in the good old days, not too long ago, ransomware attacks were designed primarily to cripple your organization, make you pay the ransom, of course, usually in untraceable, currency, Bitcoin, things of that nature. because less and less organizations, more and more fortunately, are able to back up and recover, the ransoms were not getting paid as much. And so what they start pivoting to is data theft. And so a big piece that we're always looking for is there data exfiltration or their covert channels. And so a lot of things that we do to lock down and make sure that things can't phone home, that we're looking for things to phone home. We're looking for those kind of, can footholds be established? And then we use those, as I mentioned, like pen tests, kind of in some cases also as kind of a, a red team type of exercises, because our end users, our administrators and others know what's going on, and they can kind of watch for it. And we usually have those after action or hot washes to say, did we detect the things that they did? We know now everything that they did, but did we see that? Did we detect that? And sometimes, gold star to the engineers or the administrators who reach out to me and say, hey, I see X, Y, or Z occurring. Is that your guy or not? And I'll say, well, we know where they're coming from, so we can rule it out. Sometimes, good news is that our folks will look through some of the logs. They're trying to win the gold star. And so maybe they don't habitually do the cyber hygiene and look through their logs, and they'll find things and go, is this your guy? And I'll say, no, but I'm glad you found it. Let's go fix that, or let's go address that. But to the question, maybe the best lesson that we learned, again, from a sister organization that got hit and hit hard was, you've got to have your game plan, right? If you're not doing tabletops, if you don't have all of your stuff mapped out, the time to figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to recover, how you're going to communicate, is not during the crisis. The time to do that is hopefully beforehand, getting your entire organization on board, not just your IT and technical, but get everybody in the room and talk them through. And we've done those ourselves. We even had a fun one where we did one where it was basically a flood in our data center. And sadly, 3 weeks later, we actually had a flood in our data center. It was completely unrelated. Everybody kind of was winking at me like, did you cause this? But it was great that we had just talked about, hey, what we're going to do for the response. But this other organization, they told us the big lesson was, having that in place, but that they were underprepared for the type of work that needed to be done. And so if you want to figure out, was data exfiltrated, what's the extent of the damage, you need to do forensics, and forensics takes time. Well, if you're a school district, you're an organization, you want to get back up and running, you basically want to be able to have your forensic works being done, the whole, how did it happen? A lot of times you want to figure it out so you can close the door so you don't build systems and they get compromised immediately again. But sometimes it's going to take you a while to figure out attribution and some other things, and you might need to start getting some systems up and running. Maybe you're going to take some risks there, but you may need to start getting some things up and running. And what they found was they were running too ragged, and this happens in K-12s, I'm sure it happens in a lot of organizations, where the amount of headroom you have in, say, your compute, your VMware, your storage, all those things, if you're running too close to capacity, which again is ideal in some organizations where it's like, hey, we don't want to have unused compute, we don't want to overbuy. But if you don't already have a plan, if you can't move to the cloud and spin up resources that you need to, if you don't have all this worked out, you may be stuck making some hard decisions on, I can't bring up new systems because I don't have the computer or the ability to do it. Or I may have to sacrifice, if I don't already know that I can recover the data, I might have to sacrifice those encrypted ones, images and that storage, simply to get back online. And so that's a big lesson. It's a lot there, but I think the takeaway for everybody is run those tabletops, think about, game out how your system, how your recovery might need to look like, and understand, do you have the capability? Do you have the capacity? Do you have the understanding? Do you have the backups? Do you have the recovery procedures? Again, you don't want to start figuring out what you're not prepared for. You don't want to start figuring that out during the middle of a crisis. You want to have, ideally, beyond tabletop, run live exercises, but at a minimum, run the tabletop so you can start to figure out where are some of your holes in your environment, and if you have some critical needs, make sure you have room to do that kind of simultaneous recovery while you might be holding on to some of those images, again, for forensics, or worst case scenario, maybe you do need to get a recovery key or something like that. Because sadly, there are still some folks that end up finding out, hey, they busted my backups, or nobody was checking. Our backups just weren't working. We never validated things. And I guess we got to go ahead and pay the ransom. So again, it's that thinking about, how are you going to basically get out of this? How are you going to get back to if you don't already have a business continuity plan, how are you going to get back to normal working? How long is that going to take? Who are you going to communicate with? How are you going to communicate? So tabletops are great for that.
No, I love that. And just to add to that, I say this all the time, and people know this, is you have to have the right person in the position to do all of that. And so I want to give kudos to Chris. You
Right.
need someone like that, man, to be in that position. You think that would be common sense, Chris, but you need someone that has that proactive nature, that self-discipline to go out and seek solutions and do things and do tabletops and exercises and
Right.
live scenarios. And so that's important for people listening in here, man.
Right.
Um,
Fortunately, the industry's getting there, right? That's the good news is fortunately the industry's getting there. So
This question is from my lovely wife here, Chris. So look at you. You get a question from the wife. She says, how do you see cyber moving over the next 10 years? Do you foresee more problems as attacks become more sophisticated? How do you feel like AI might affect cybercrime and cybersecurity moving forward? Loaded question there from the wife, Chris. So take your time, my friend. But yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, our AI overlords, or as we like to joke, if anybody's a South Park fan, Trapper Keeper, you know that the dystopian future is rapidly approaching, and all the hand wringing over AI is in some cases fully warranted. We have already AI hallucinating. We already have examples. Go Google this. I don't have links for you guys, but definitely Google where they've already had AI models refuse to shut themselves down when given a direct order. So there's some very interesting things that are already playing out. I think a big piece that dovetails into is not only the ability for AI and things to move more rapidly or to allow a lower barrier of entry. We used to talk about script kiddies, and script kiddies were the folks that didn't necessarily know what they were doing, but they could cut and paste things online to launch denial service attacks, things of that nature, where again, they didn't have no sophistication required. The pejorative term being script kiddie is they didn't really know what they were doing, but they were able to wreak havoc or cause problems anyway. And now AI is really kind of doing that, on steroids. But a big piece of that kind of is also the quantum computing. And the fact that with quantum computing and the forecasts of quantum computing, and we're keeping an eye on this because there's two aspects. It's what happens when essentially it gets to the point where it can crack a lot of our current algorithms, our current cryptography. But then you also have to start thinking, which I learned and was fantastic recently at the last Houston SecCon, which again, shameless plug for those guys. Definitely, if you're in the Houston area, go to Houston SecCon. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. If you can't get out to DEF CON and Black Hat, definitely our Houston community is growing and growing and growing, and lots of good stuff coming here. But one of the things we had somebody talk cyber at the last one, and specifically quantum computing. And something I hadn't thought about until she mentioned this was, you may have data at rest that's encrypted. You're going to need to think about that as well. So we're always thinking about data at flight. We're thinking about buying the next set of golf clubs and maybe using an undersecured algorithm, because now quantum can break in and man in the middle type of attack that. But what about maybe data that you've been thinking you're storing securely? Are you going to have the cycles? Are you going to have the knowledge or the wherewithal to go back maybe, especially if you're mandated by state or federal law to preserve records and you're preserving them in a secure manner? And so I think that those are the kind of things over the next 10 years we're going to see a lot more of is not only the AI threats and the quantum computing threats kind of converging, not just in real time, but also in terms of legacy or historical knowledge. School districts have to maintain education records, 7 years, 10 years, there's different parameters. And so a lot of times, again, you have to think to yourself, hey, what's going on right now? But also, do I have a game plan? Can I start to move early? Even if we haven't figured it all out yet, can I start to move my encryption standards and at least make sure that they're as sophisticated as they can be, and hopefully that they can be, essentially protected against some of those kind of future events. And so I know that's what they're working on. I know that folks are certainly working on those kind of AI proofed or basically quantum secured algorithms. But again, those are the things that we're really watching for, is just that the speed at which the attacks are going to come absolutely will increase. The sophistication will absolutely increase. And a lot of what we think today that we're going to be using as defense just won't be there, or just won't be as effective. So we'll have to try to stay as nimble as the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, the weaponization of AI is going to be a huge problem, and I know some vendors have already incorporated AI algorithms inside of their offering just to hopefully combat it. But again, you can only do so much. But I think having that blend of human and as well as AI will
Right.
be the
Yeah,
best.
in a school district, there's the obvious concerns of plagiarism and all those kind of
Right.
like soft issues, but the bigger issues that we really worry about, the so-called keep you up at night ones, are the fact that the attack vectors, and we watch them morphing. We surprisingly get very sophisticated attacks. We work very closely with our partners, Microsoft, Palo Alto, and stuff. Sometimes our partners are surprised at the sophistication, not only of what we do in order to detect and kind of respond to these things, but also in the sophistication that's being thrown at school districts. That we would often like to think, hey, we're not someplace that they're going to waste a 0 day on. But nowadays, you don't really need that. And a lot of the obfuscation, a lot of the morphing, the polymorphic type of attacks, the sometimes where we'll see double, triple nested scripts embedded in things, and they're using a variety of different mechanisms for encoding, because again, they know that a lot of traditional systems, maybe it will only unpack one level or two levels, or maybe they don't unpack at all. And again, like I said, we were watching QR really kind of rise to the front, because again, those are graphic, and in a lot of cases, there are not systems yet that do a great job of translating the QR into what it is and looking to see, is that an IOC or is that some sort of problem? So the level that we're seeing it kind of leveling up, and this is again before people have really gotten super sophisticated with AI, using some of the things you mentioned earlier, like voice cloning and other things. We just know that, as with everything, as that barrier comes down, as it becomes easier and easier to use, we're going to start to see those attack vectors increase, and sadly that scares us, because again, we don't have in some cases that sophistication. We'll go back to my philanthropy thing, right? We don't always have the tools or sophistication in order to keep up, and so sometimes I'm really begging our vendors to say, I know it's going to cost you some money. I know that services are not free. It's not like you can just give us licenses and there's no cost. You may still have to pay for compute on your side or storage on your side. But again, the more we can use low cost or no cost solutions that are up to the challenge, that are up to the task, that's what we really need help with.
And just to give some people a reassurance, my QR codes are legit, so you can scan them and they'll go to exactly where they need to go to. Don't worry, nothing's been manipulated. At least I know yet. Chris, we're getting close to the top of the hour. I guess my final question for you, my friend, simple question. I know I really appreciate all the work you've done at Fort Bend and obviously your knowledge and expertise. But 2025, man, is it still phishing? Is it still manipulation of people clicking on things they shouldn't be clicking on? Is it still human fault for cybersecurity attacks? Biggest threat vector here in 2025?
It probably varies a bit by organization, right? I mean, because again, through InfraGard and the public-private partnership, for people not familiar with InfraGard, is the public-private partnership with the FBI, and so we have critical sectors as identified in the federal government, and we have everything oil and gas, energy type stuff, healthcare, finance. Every sector kind of gets their different types of stuff, whether you're distributed like in energy and you have a lot of IoT type of things, or a lot of OT type of environments.
Right.
For us, it really is still that they're credential harvesting. They're still trying anything and everything to come after credentials. And so again, whether they're using dark web scans and things of that nature, whether they're still using phishing or other type of tactics to get folks to put it in, again, that's where we've really pivoted and are moving everything that we can to multi-factor, especially on the outside. In some cases, there are still challenges there. We're still trying to move a lot of legacy systems, things that don't necessarily support more advanced, authentication. But you're absolutely right. I think phishing, a lot of those kind of things, they're still targeting our users. They still know that that's a weak link. And it's not because our end users are not sophisticated. It's because the attacks are getting even more sophisticated. And so we have folks, for whatever reason, one of our administrators here has been a target, a relentless target. All of his team continues to receive emails from fake Gmail accounts purporting to be him. They're smart enough to catch it, but the level and the intensity of these attacks to his staff, basically saying, hey, it's me and I need X, Y, and Z, or hey, I found this thing that you need to check out, is just shocking, because it's somebody. Now, again, could it be all automated? It could be a variety of things. But the fact that they're that concerted going after one of these users, who again is not one of our most senior security holders, but again makes me think they figured this out. They're going after these folks. They may very well have used any of those tactics, such as the beaconing that occurs in emails. Hey, you don't even have to click, but if you're loading images in those emails, if folks that are not aware of this, there's sometimes hidden images, clear GIFs, as it were, in the email. And if you're loading images automatically, the bad guy knows you're reading their email. You may not be clicking, but now they're going to double down their attacks. So those are the kind of things that we try to do and prevent and educate and say, yeah, it's fun to see email and it's fun to get email with images in it. But that is one of the attack vectors. Is you may not be clicking, but they are certainly tracking you. Just like Constant Contact uses the same kind of technology to track whether you're reading emails or not. The bad guys have been doing that for a long time too. And once you start to open their emails, you get kind of moved up in the priority queue of, hey, this is somebody we need to keep attacking. So
I haven't heard that before, man. That's interesting.
yeah, you don't even have to click. You just have to open that email, and because it loads that image from afar. And again, you can go look at the source. Go view the source of the email. If you get a weird email like that, and you view the source, and you see there are images that are not displaying, and a lot of times they're 0 by 0, 1 by 1 type of maybe a pixel, a black square that's 1 by 1 that looks like a period. You look at the HTML, you're going to see basically in the source that you've got some stuff in there. And if you see that it's not local, if you see that it's going off to somewhere, 9 times out of 10, it's a tracker. And like I said, companies have been doing this for a long time to track, again, like a Constant Contact or other those companies that'll say, here are how many people got your email, here are how many people opened it, here are how many people are interacting. That's one of the mechanisms they use, is if that image loads, they know. And a lot of times that image is unique to you. It's got a little string in there that, hey, if their server sees that image loaded, they know that Taylor went ahead and opened that email. Don't have to click, don't have to do anything else. But now they'll go, hey, that guy is somebody who at least fell for our email. We just have to do better next time on what we're asking him to do, because he's a guy that's going to click on things from people he doesn't know. So,
well, it happened not on email, but over text, where the toll authority here in Dallas were sending texts to people. You owe money. You're past due on your bill. Click here and pay the link, and people were falling for it. And
absolutely,
it happens. It happens constantly, man.
It does.
Chris, we're at the top of the hour, my friend. I genuinely do appreciate your time and your expertise.
Oh, thanks. Good chat.
Hanging out with me. I do appreciate the questions from the audience. I guess my last leaving part, Chris, if people want to get more involved with you, where's the best place to do that, my friend?
LinkedIn is definitely a great place to connect with me on. I definitely try to keep up with that there. My contact info is there as well. If you want to go ahead and shoot me, you can hit christopher.carr@fortbendisd.gov is the way that you can reach me at the work email. But like I said, LinkedIn's a great place because sometimes it's going to even refer you or connect you with other folks. Sometimes can work through that avenue too. So any and all of the above, just make sure it has hopefully a meaningful subject line. And to the vendors out there, I love you, but please stop doing the connect because they're too cheap for InMail. That stuff drives me absolutely bonkers. There used to be a fun thing, and I'll let you go, but I don't know if there's a commercial way ago, but it was funny. It was the way that payphones used to work, and you recorded your name, right, for a toll call, and the other person got who was calling. And so the guy says on the phone, he's at the hospital, he says, "We had a baby, it's a boy," was his name. And then that way the people said, "Oh, what was that?" And he goes, "Oh," he just hangs up and he goes, "Oh, hey, Doug had the baby, it's a boy." And it's funny because there's a free way to get that message through to everybody without paying for the calls. But I always love that kind of concept of kind of embedding or sneaking that kind of information in, as an attack type of thing. So there's always creative ways that people are injecting that kind of stuff. And like I said, we're trying to stay on the lookout for it. But I feel like sometimes that's what happens on LinkedIn. That's folks are using that kind of welcoming or that shot across the bow is, hey, it's free, and I'll stick my message in there instead of hey, let's connect. It's more of like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about X, Y, or Z. And I'm like,
right. No, people just forget the humane aspect. Just be a damn human, dude. Right. Like have a conversation versus forcing product.
Let's get to know each other before you hit me with the hard sales pitch.
Take me on a steak dinner at least, Jesus.
Right. Well, it's less than that, and I don't mean to be mean to all the folks, but I always remind them that again, as we've said about 4 or 5 times in this, we ain't got no money. So if you're coming to me for money, we should be friends more so. I've got a lot I can offer you, but probably if you're looking to make a sale, that's going to be a bit tougher to do. So.
Amen, my friend. Well, Chris, again, man, pleasure was all mine. I really appreciate you spending some time with me.
Yeah,
today,
thanks. It's always good chatting with you. Always good chopping it up. And thank you for no math questions. That would have been hard for me. So.
Well, guys and girls, I was Christopher Carr, Information Security Advisor at Fort Bend ISD. Please go connect with them on LinkedIn. This episode will be live on our website shortly, so you can check it out. And we will be back on SVIP Live in a couple weeks. We'll be sitting down with Ron Self. He's the Director of Building and Security Operations for Baldwin, Shell, and Construction Company. So we're going to a GC next on SVIP Live. But thanks again for tuning in, and you guys stay safe out there.
Thanks, Taylor.